Just press. So we are continuing with chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga. And unless I'm mistaken, last week we got up to text 25. So we'll be on text 26 starting today. And I've just been looking through these verses and took some notes on them as well. Let's see how far we get. But anyway, I was going to say, let's have a little review of what we covered last week. There's one particular nice example, but there's only two of you here. So I guess it puts you on the spot. Mother Lydia, Mother Chandravali, remember specifically there's one nice example that we kind of devotees, we kind of elaborated on last week. It's encouraging. Prabhupada in the purple is very encouraging of text 24. Prabhupada gives a wonderful example.
Wasn't it determination of that sparrow?
That's it, yeah.
And how Garuda helped.
Yeah, so that was very nice. So sometimes it may seem that achieving what we read about and achieving what we hear about, sometimes it seems so far away. Yeah. So an example is given of this sparrow, isn't it? The sparrow who was trying to retrieve her eggs from the ocean. But what chance does she have, But seeing her efforts, then Garuda came. And also we didn't comment on it much, in the purple, Prabhupada also quoted Rupa Goswami. I just realized afterwards that, we could have emphasized that a little bit more, Rupa Goswami's verse, which he mentions some qualities which are needed to be successful in our devotional practice. So to be enthusiastic, utsahan, perseverance. So just like this sparrow, persevering despite everything that comes at us or everything that's thrown against us. And sometimes it seems like that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So many, due to the material world, so many things come at us, thrown at us. But we should be perseverance. We should continue and determination. So to be determined, to be enthusiastic, persevering, and determined. Yeah, so that's coming from the Upadeshamrita, text 3. And then Prabhupada goes into the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs. Yeah. So that was last week. Then we read text 20.
Can I ask a question there?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so one goes through the karma, our karma, and it can be difficult or whatever. But if you follow with determination, enthusiasm,
Perseverance. Yeah.
perseverance,
Yeah.
still holding on to Krishna conscious, what is the goal?
Well, what is the result, you mean?
Yeah, what's the result? Yes.
Well, you get Krishna's mercy, to put in essence. Become very pleasing to a Krishna. You're kind of proving your worth. You're proving your sincerity. And you're proving that you're a serious candidate for being liberated from the material world. But it also may happen that sometimes devotees may not be able to come up to the mark, and so therefore they may fall away from the practice. Still, all is not lost. There is no loss or diminution. So even for such persons, Krishna is there, guiding them, waiting for them. So it's not at a total loss. Yeah.
Oh, yes, Arjun asked that question, doesn't he? What happens to those who don't make it?
Yeah. Are they riven just like a cloud? Are they like a riven cloud? And then Krishna says, one who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The other verse as well. There's no loss of.
Which verse are we discussing?
Well, we're
Chapter.
trying to start to get west. We're going to start 26 today. We're just having a quick review with some questions.
Verse before.
Wednesday. Yeah, there's no loss or diminution. Did I get the right verse? I think so.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so overall, spiritual life and Krishna is giving great encouragement to us. Yeah. Compared to material life, where generally material life has a certain projective that you work very, very, very hard to accumulate as much as you can, and then at the end we lose it all. Basically, if you take it down to its bare nuts and bolts, we have to leave this world, and then you take birth and you have to start the whole thing again. Yeah, education, accumulation, expansion, maintenance, yeah, then dwindling, then leaving the world. But spiritual life is Krishna is always encouraging to those who take it up, even if there's sometimes a setback. Yeah? So beginning then this week, those who just joining, Jai Prakash, thank you for joining us. Hare Krishna, good to have you with us.
Yeah, hi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we're on text 26 of chapter 6, so we haven't begun yet. So we'll begin with this verse. We just had a review on what we did last week. So now Krishna's going to be speaking about the inevitable. He speaks about the last verse was Shanai Shanai. Step by step, one should elevate one's ability in meditation or trance. Speaking about Dhyan Yoga. So then, as we all experience when we, for instance, our Pacific practice is not the Ashtanga meditation, but our Pacific practice is normally revolves around mantra japa, chanting Krishna's holy name. And it's something that we all experience. It's very difficult. The mind is very flickering. It goes here and it goes there. So Krishna knows that. So he's going to speak about that now and explain how to overcome it. Yeah. So someone like to read text 26, the Sanskrit and the translation in purple.
I can read.
Yeah.
What Kishore is there, or I can read.
Here today, I guess there might be other things going on in the world. But anyway, let's continue. Even if there's one.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Text 26. Yato yato nischalate manas chanchalam astiram tathastato niyam yetad atmani eva vasham nayet. Translation. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind, and therefore the senses as well, is called Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice.
Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you. So any immediate questions off the cuff, as they say here? No. Krishna's given 3 adjectives that describe the mind very nicely. Nischality is one. Nischality, which means verily agitated, also means wandering. That's its nature, as we may have understood. It wanders here, it wanders all over the universe. Yeah, so nischality. Another one is chanchalam. We all know what chanchalam means.
Flickering.
Flickering, yeah, going from one to the other, accepting and rejecting. So it's wandering, and as well as wandering, it's chanchalam, accepts and rejects. Yeah, shall I eat this? No, I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't eat that. It's not good for me. Oh, I have to eat it.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we have he mentions also astiram. So astiram, Prabhupada translates it as unsteady. So it's unsteady, it cannot remain. Yeah. So that's what we're dealing with. But Krishna doesn't but there's no magic wand, there's no magic tricks that's gonna make everything okay. It's down to us. We have to do this. Prabhupada and Krishna is saying, explaining what we have to do. Yeah, we have to withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And we get opportunity to do that, especially when we're chanting mantra japa. You know? Yeah, the mind Shuddha Swami describes it as losing its equilibrium. Yeah. I guess Confessions of a Brahmachari, I experienced this yesterday. Yesterday was Ekadashi, and I ate just a little. But there was some point in the day I just could not fix my mind on my reading, on slokas. I somehow or another, I was just going here, going there. Then eventually I managed to pick up a book towards the end of the day and found sanctuary. It's just one of those things. I was fasting and there's other things on my mind, and I couldn't just sit down with my study and my sadhana, you know. Sometimes it's like that. So can anyone say what the cause is? What's the cause? We're
But because our senses are not satisfied. Like, say, if it wasn't fasting, you had a proper breakfast or meal or something, well satisfied, and you'll continue. Like me yesterday as well, I had an issue coming up later on, but I was so happy, like chanting away and doing all sorts of things I wanted to do. And after that thing, my mind just went crazy a little bit till I had to bring it back to.
Yeah, it got shot. The mind got shot.
Yeah, but if that situation was something that pleased me, then I would have carried on doing what I wanted. I realized it with my own mind, how I have to control it. Like if the answer to whatever was happening was positive, then I would have been, yes, carry on chanting and carry on doing everything. But because it was a little bit negative, so the mind went into that, you know?
Yeah.
So it lost the track.
Lost the plot. Easily done.
Yes.
So so you could say basically we're speaking about being influenced by the modes of passion, rajas, or ignorance. You know, this material world is composed of the modes of material nature. So somehow or another, the things we expose ourselves to, or the things we are exposed to, it does have some influence subtly upon us. So therefore, we're kind of, if we find, I would say yesterday I was in a mode of passion, you know, in a mode of passion. So anybody else has any questions or comments here? Welcome, Manu Mohini, Mother. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to Prabhupada's purport, see what just looking at what's going
Can I?
on. Maybe I could bring something out from the purple. Yes, the question there.
Yeah, I was thinking that in a way it's good to be going through this kind of things, so then you can analyze your mind and can work with it or find out where you're going wrong and try and work with that.
Yeah, I guess
Does
it's
it-
yeah, education to see what a bad state the mind is in.
we are in.
Now,
Yeah, the mind is in. Yeah.
generally, it's going to happen when you embark on any path of meditative yoga. Then you realize how far the mind is affected and how far the mind is distracted. When you actually make a sankalpa to keep the mind specifically in one place, then you begin to feel and understand the state of your conditioned mind. Yeah, because it starts to become it's difficult. That's agitated. But again, as Krishna's saying here, due to its flickering, it's due to its wandering, flickering, and unsteady nature, we must just bring it back. Bring it back. Just like I see mothers in controlling their children. The children want to go this way, the mother pulls them back, and the children want to go that way, and pulls them back. I want to do this, and the mother's always, come here, kids, trying to rein them in. So the mind's very much like that. It's like a child, because that's been our practice, which is before taking up Krishna conscious, we're just like blown like a ball of dust by the winds of the modes of material nature. So then we will finally sit down and try to meditate upon Krishna. Often it's difficult, but Krishna's given us encouragement. You just keep on trying. And if we keep on trying, then Krishna's going to help us. That's the thing. Krishna will help. And Prabhupada says here,
Yeah, I have one question.
Yeah, please. Hare Krishna. Jai Prakash.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so I have one question. As we said, like we have to come the mind to again back to Krishna or God.
Yes.
So is it like any like a step we should follow, like chanting a name or some specific things we can do to do it?
Yeah, we specifically have a sadhana that we practice as bhakti yogis. We actually have a sadhana, which I think you probably heard of. It's the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Krishna, 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 Hare
Yes.
Hare Ram, Ram, Ram.
Rama.
So that's one specific practice which we do, which is probably the most important anga. And for instance, in a temples at home or in temples, let's say example in a temple, then in the morning at a certain time, all the devotees will sit down with Japamala and they will chant the Maha Mantra. So there's things you can. So that's the basic practice of it, and also there's things that can help as well in order to be able to enter into that meditation. It means you should be helps to be free to prepare and be free from what's called lassitude or tiredness. A practical thing. So because a good time to chant is before the day gets churning. Yeah. So we try as much as possible to chant in the morning time. If you can chant before sunrise, that's great. But that means you take rest a bit earlier. So you prepare yourself for that meditation, because as you can imagine, if you're tired, like I see it all the time, unfortunately, in our temple when everyone sits down to chant japa, about 40% are falling asleep, unfortunately. So that's one thing. Does that help?
Yeah.
A couple of things. Have a specific practice. Have a specific time, either 10 minutes. I don't know if you chant japa, if you've tried it, and have it as a daily practice, And if you give yourself to that practice, gradually you will feel yourself making some steps forward, you know,
Yeah.
getting the mind under control. But it's not an overnight thing. We have to be a bit patient with it. Like we read in the last verse, the purple Prabhupada's quoting one of our teachers, one of our previous teachers is describing to be successful, one has to be patient. And there's a few pointers. Does that address the question? Did that help a little?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So something from the purple, or someone just joined us, but something from the purple which anyone like to bring out. It's a small purple. Prabhupada brings out the word Rishikesh. What does Rishikesh mean?
Someone who can control the senses.
No, more you mean, no, it means
Krishna.
Krishna, yes. So why is Prabhupada bringing that name? Why is he mentioning that name of Krishna, Rishikesh?
Because we have to control our senses to be able to control the mind.
Yeah, but basically he's mentioning that Rishikesh, we don't own our senses. Krishna owns our senses. Yeah. He is the supreme owner of the senses. Yeah. So he mentions by serving, yeah, as you mentioned, Rajka Sharma, yeah, by engaging the activities of bhakti, serving Krishna, yeah, then Prabhupada mentions that's the way of bringing the senses under control. So the reason I bring that up, because there's a point I mentioned earlier, when Krishna sees us make an effort, then Krishna steps in to help. Yeah. So that's why we should be a little bit or a lot of bit enthusiastic. Sometimes we may be chanting japa and we keep falling asleep and we don't do anything about it. We don't stand up. We're just happy to have a sleeping japa. Have a sleepy japa. Okay, doesn't matter. I can nod off for a few minutes, wake up for a few seconds, nod off for a few minutes. Krishna's not going to do anything special for us. Why? Because we don't want it. So we have to fight a bit. One of our senior devotees, Vai Sheshika, happened to be in a class he was giving in New York a couple of years ago. He mentions like chanting japa meditation is like trying to break something. You understand the example? Trying to break something. Confused faces looking at me. What's he mean by that? It means if you're trying to break, yeah.
Break something?
Sorry, say again.
What is this break something? Just to be able to chant properly, or?
Yeah, basically, if you're trying to, like, you're trying to, anyone ever tried to break a coconut before?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, trying to break a coconut. Bang, bang. You keep trying to bang, 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 bang. Then all of a sudden, it breaks. So it's like that in japa. Sometimes you're trying to break through the fog. You're trying to break through the mist. You're trying to break through your tiredness. You're trying to break through the lower modes. So you're trying. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And you're trying to break. And eventually, if you keep trying, you can break through. Yeah. Just like if you had the experience, you're kind of on a safari in a wild forest, Like one time, brahmacharis, we went on a retreat in I forget, Slovenia somewhere, and we went on a mountain walk, and it was very arduous. This walk, very arduous. It was a very steep mountain or hill we had to climb. Devotees were slipping. I didn't have proper shoes on. It was quite tiring. And then we got to the top finally, but we persevered and we got to the top. And at the very top, there's this beautiful lake which is still like anything, with like no wind. It's like inside the mountain at the top, there's this water lake. It's like, oh, we got there and oh, it felt so refreshing. We did arduous journeys. So sometimes chanting japa is a bit like that. You keep on trying to climb out the modes, you know. Then eventually, by the grace of Krishna, Krishna comes in as Rishikesh. Okay, you've tried your best. You got no chance, but you're trying your best. All right, let me help you. Yeah. Let me step in and help you. Let me make the name so attractive that you cannot think of anything else. You know, let me manifest the sweetness of my name. Yeah. Hare Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada uses the word Rishikesh. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I've got a low battery here. Got to plug in something. Right, are we ready for the next verse? I'll just have a look. Some commentaries from our acharyas. I think we've covered most of it. Yeah. Yeah, Lord Krishna, this is Ramanuja, is explaining that wherever soever the fickle mind flutters and flickers about to wander in infatuation away from the Atma or soul in pursuit of sense objects, let all efforts be made to withdraw the mind therefrom and guide it back, persuading it convincingly the fact that the Atma itself is the supreme goal of happiness. So a bit of manashiksha. Yeah, listen, you rascal mind, you know, persuading it convincingly the fact that the Atma itself, in other words, understanding the soul and its connection with Krishna is the goal. And there's obviously, it might take too long to go over all of them. Yeah, so another commentary, a question may be raised that if the controlled mind becomes suddenly tempestuous, anyone knows what tempestuous means? All of a sudden, if something comes up and you're tempted and restless, what should be done? The mind must be immediately rescued. You have to go out and rescue that mind. If it goes into the modes, if the mind goes into the sewer of sense gratification, you have to rescue it. You, the soul, have to rescue it. Yeah. And bring it back again and again until the mind at some point becomes fixed. You know? Excuse me, I just muted while I sneezed. Okay, Hare Krishna. Anything else? So we have another couple more devotees have joined us. Thank you. Well, Movan is now with us as well. Hare Krishna. So now this is going to continue this theme for these verses up to text 30, and until at least the text 30. It's going to continue describing Krishna's going to advise us on how we can overcome the otherwise obstinate mind. And then he's going to describe the results that come from that. There is a certain, because these are stages, yeah? So this is a stage that you have to go through to gain mastery over the mind and senses. The first stage is experiencing the mind being nischalati, ashtiram, and chanchalam. Yeah, that's the first stage. Then if you follow what Krishna's saying, you'll come to other stages. And from that will come wonderful, wonderful realizations, you know. So let's look at those wonderful things to achieve. So let's look at text 27, shall we? And if someone would like to read, Mother Gaya's here as well. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Shall I read?
Yes, go ahead, Mother Rajkishore. Wonderful, thank you.
Prashantamanasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarasajam brahma bhutam akalmasham. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions of past deeds. Brahma Bhuta is a state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad bhaktim labate param. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai mana Krishna padaravindiyo. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination.
Okay, thank you. And I just realized that I haven't shared the Bhagavad Gita on the screen, but I've heard no complaints. So I guess, does anyone need Bhagavad Gita? I can share it on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Jai Prakash, let me just get to bring it up. So while I'm doing that, any specific observation or questions on that? Let me pressing a few buttons here. Books, Bhagavad Gita, text 27. Okay, let's go here. Share screen. Here it comes. Share. Okay, there you have it. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita. So this, we just read this verse here. Yep. Oh, Hare Krishna. So yeah, actually here now this is the results, some of the results that come from making that effort. Yeah. So we have to, everyone has to make some effort, isn't it? Even in material life. But ultimately, making effort in material life, as we mentioned before. I mean, we do have to maintain our situation, so we have to make some effort. But actually, the best thing we could try for is this. Yeah. So this is, Krishna says, one is a result of being fixed on him, attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. And that, remember that wonderful verse we read before? Texts 20 to 23. Know that in that state of trance called samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained, etc., from material mental activities. I just read the end. Even so, established thus, one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from the miseries arising from material contact. So here in this verse, similar, the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. Yeah. So anyone can say a little bit what the Brahma Bhuta platform, what does it mean by Brahma Bhuta? Some of you might know the verse, Brahma Bhuta Prashanna Atmana Sotidena Kanchati Samat Saveshu Bhuteshu Mat Bhaktim Labate Param. Papa quotes the last line of that verse. It's actually the stage that comes prior to actually obtaining Krishna. Yeah. Let me just go to 1854 and read that verse that we just quoted. Or you may have your books there. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes joyful. So this is what happens. And there's other verses we read as well. If you learn to bring the mind under control, then you come in touch with the super soul, with the Lord situated within the heart. Yeah. So you become transcendental, then you're not affected by the modes of material nature. So the verse reads, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes Supreme Brahman, Krishna, and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards all living entities. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Yeah. And Prabhupada quotes this verse, which we've come across a couple of times in our Bhagavad Gita readings. Who is this here? Savayamana Krishna Pada Vindayo. This, what personality is this referring to? He always fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Savayamana Krishna Pada Vindayo. Maharaj, he had a disagreement, or he didn't have a disagreement. But one angry yogi had an issue.
Amrish Maharaj.
Ambush, yeah, some angry yogi had an issue with a great saintly devotee, yeah, which led to dire consequences for the yogi. Yeah. So Maharaj Ambrish is celebrated as being a great devotee because all his senses, including his mind, is focused on the Lord. You know? Now, the Acharyas, they make a big issue of describing about this Brahma Bhuta platform. And Prabhupada speaks of it as well. Now, this is they describe it as you realize the underlying substratum. Have you followed? You realize the underlying substratum of the universe, or that everyone is actually a spiritual entity. And you don't misidentify as being a product of the material world yourself, nor do I misidentify others as being material. You are enamored by the wonder of Krishna's creation. Yeah. You follow? Yeah. So that, as Krishna says, Devi hi esha gunamayi. So you realize that, let me do some muting here. 1 second. Hare Krishna. Crying babies. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so this is a realization that comes through the practice of Krishna consciousness. There are some also yogis who may come to this level of Brahma Bhuta realization, but without shelter of Krishna, it's difficult to remain there. Yeah. So let me just read, for example, yeah. Yeah, anyway, it goes on. I guess it comes a bit later, more described, yeah. Yeah, here it is. The word Santa Rajasham means the quality of rajas or passion has become shanta or peaceful. Yeah. So therefore, can you imagine, well, it's nice to imagine that when a state where we're not affected by the mode of passion or ignorance, this is what comes from fixing the mind upon Krishna. Yeah. One becomes shanta or peaceful. They're not influenced, they're not shaken by the modes of nature. Yeah. So then it describes he becomes imbued with the qualities of Brahman. Yeah, means he acts and thinks as a soul and doesn't act and think as a body. Doesn't act or think as an Englishman, act or think as a whatever. He acts and thinks as a soul. Yeah. And he realizes everyone is also a soul. It describes, or the spiritual substratum pervading all existence. Yeah, and therefore he really establishes one in their true essence of spiritual splendor. Yeah, and there's so much more. There's more here. But any particular questions or comments here? Anything stand out? What's the short purple? So you come
Yeah.
across. Sorry,
Yeah, one question.
please. Yeah.
It's mentioned Shanta Rajasam, like free from passion.
Yeah.
So like every point of time, like like until we fully uh, involved with Krishna, we are in that mode, right? Free of passion mode. Something already every time going in our mind. So how can we get that stage where we say like we are free from passion?
Yeah, I understand. It's a good question because we are compromised in many ways. You're saying we have to go out into the world and we have to associate with the world, etc., etc. So we have to get very much involved in one sense with the modes of material nature. It's especially passion, and it's difficult, very, very, very difficult to stay fixed in sattva gun. So how to do that? Well, we have to practice in a sacred space, at least in our own place, in our own environment. We try and create a spiritual atmosphere, you know, and we may have a specific, it's good to have a specific practice that we do every day. And again, I mentioned chanting Krishna's holy name. It's called Vaidhi Sadhana. Yeah. So again, it's before the day gets going, or we at some point we have to organize our life in such a way that we are doing some quality hearing and chanting about Krishna. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then as we do that, and as we become accustomed to it, and as we can go deeper in our bhajan and the quality of our bhajan, we will be able to manifest that peaceful state which we experience, and we'll be able to remain in that state of mind. The more we become fixed and more stronger in our Krishna consciousness, which comes from that specific practice. So, in other words, we can go out, and you can probably feel it. You'll feel it as we progress in Krishna consciousness. We can be less affected when we're moving about the world than perhaps we was before. So it comes through the practice of hearing and chanting about Krishna, you know. So that's why, for example, in Hare Krishna temples, we have a specific program, we call it morning program. It's a bit early for most in temples, from 4:30 to 8:30. But at home, it may be from whenever you wake up. If you wake up 9 o'clock, then you take shower, whatever you do. But before the day gets going, then you can engage in some hearing and chanting. It's good as well that when you come back from your work, you set some time aside to read Bhagavad Gita, perhaps chant Krishna's holy name, 4 rounds, whatever vows you may have made. Understand, Jai Prakash? Then you got some. Then from that you're developing your Krishna consciousness. Then you'll find that eventually, it's hoped that eventually your calmness and peacefulness will start to have effect on other people. So rather than being affected by other people, you affect them with your Krishna consciousness. So that's
Okay.
that is it's not so easy. It's a test of our Krishna consciousness, how we can maintain our Krishna consciousness throughout the day. It's because it's very easy to be in good consciousness when we're sitting in front of our altar and we're meditating upon Krishna. But then when we're out in the day and someone says something to us in a certain way, or something happens, we kind of sometimes it may all go out the window, and we lose that consciousness that we had. And you can see that I mean, in devotees who've been practicing Krishna consciousness for many, many years, 40, 50 years, you can see that they are transcendental. They are always blissful. Like here in Central. Where do you live, Jai Prakash? Are you tuning in from UK or outside?
Yes.
UK.
Yeah. Yes.
Where? Where in the UK?
London.
London. All right. So you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here in London, we had today, we had one, he's been with us for 3 days, Dina Bandhu Prabhu. Such a wonderful devotee. You may have heard of him. He lives in Vrindavan, the holy place of Vrindavan. And once a year, he comes out and does preaching. And he's always blissful, always blissful, always very open-hearted, always blissful, always giving blessings, always encouraging, always, whenever you see him, even if whatever time, whatever the weather, Indian summer, the winter.
Yeah.
So that's the result of practice. Yeah. That
Okay.
comes from practice. Okay. So some things to meditate. Very good question. Very good point. Yeah. So anything else we can bring out from here? He realizes his qualitative identity. So qualitative means not quantitative. Okay. We are like Krishna in quality, but not in quantity. I hope we've understood that. Just like a drop of water is the same as the ocean in quality, but not quantity. So therefore, also one is freed from the reactions to past deeds, and that's mentioned in the commentaries. Probably take me too long to dig it out, but that's mentioned. All the muck, all the pup that's been collected along the way in our sojourn in this material world. When you come to this stage, it's all burnt away. Yeah. So there's no karma you're going to be held hostage to in the future. Yeah, it's all being cleared. Anything that happens after that to you, you should understand as a direct arrangement of the Lord. Yeah. Okay. All right, should we have a look at text 28? Yeah, I just wanted to get in that verse 1854. He never laments or never hankers. Yeah. So anyone ever done something that you wish you hadn't have done?
Every day.
Every day. Yeah. So at that stage, one doesn't lament about anything. Anything that's happened to you or in the material world. Because we tend to go over things, isn't it? Lament. So one is free of that at this stage. And also no lamentation, no hankering. These are the two qualities of a materialistic person. Always lamenting, always hankering for something which is not within their grasp. Yeah. At this point, one is free of all of that. Whole storm of the material world becomes quiet. Yeah. That's great. Does it sound attractive? Yes. Okay, let's have a look at text 28. Again, these are relatively small, very small purple here again. Someone would like to read this one and the small purple.
I can read if nobody wants to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmasha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. Translation.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination
and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Purport. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Brahma Samsparsha.
Okay, Brahma Samsparsha. All right. So again, just to remind you, probably other translations of Bhagavad Gita, they will not translate Brahma Samsparsha as being in contact with the Supreme. Yeah, Krishna. They will translate it as being in contact with that Brahman. Yeah, in other words, a impersonal connotation. But probably, although it's not, see, the word is Brahma Samsparsham. So Prabhupada's translation is being in contact with the Supreme. So he's keeping our meditation, keeping our understanding on the actual, I can say, keeping our understanding on, bringing us to the actual point that Krishna is going to bring Arjuna to in this chapter. That the highest perfection of yoga is to engage in loving service to Krishna. Yeah. So that's why Prabhupada here, self-realization means one's constitutional position in relation to the Supreme. I mean, actually, the whole purport is a Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. It's all about Krishna consciousness. All right. Any questions on this? Yeah. Free from all material contamination. Let us read a little bit here. This is from Shita Swami. Then by possessing such blessed felicity, that's an old word for state of mind, yeah? Such a yogi becomes blessed and achieves easily communion. That's another kind of old word, communion. It's used in a Christian context often. Communion with the ultimate consciousness, which destroys all sins and ignorance, and which is itself is infinite bliss and attains liberation from the perpetual cycle of birth and death while one is still living. So here, getting a bit technical here, but here there's Shuddha Swami gives this commentary in his specific way, but Prabhupada is reminding us very much that what's being described there is Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And there's other, I don't want to just read all the purpose of the chariot. There's not much here. 28, let me see. I read a little bit from Ramanuja. Yeah, he says, Lord Krishna speaks the word Brahma Samsparsham, yeah, which means communion with the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, and ultimate consciousness. By this one becomes liberated from material existence. The words Atyantam means endless. So endless ecstasy. Sukha means ecstasy. So ashnute, easily. The yogi, he gives constant attention to transcendental inner nature, reaches perfection easily. Next, the 4 levels of mature meditation will be described in the following 4 verses. All right, so another. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any thoughts, any questions on this one, as we can go on?
Yeah, one question.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the purport it is mentioned that self-realization means knowing one constitutional position. So what does that exactly that mean? Constitutional position means?
Yeah, well, constitutional means interesting word that Prabhupada uses. It's referring to the eternal nature of the soul, which is actually to be in the mood of servitorship to the Supreme. So a constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is one of offering loving devotional service. That's their constitution, is to serve. Yeah. So Prabhupada will sometimes explain that we see that spirit of service is there throughout human society. Husbands serving the family, everyone's serving the state, or everyone's serving their senses. We are offering service to either the family, the state, the country. That's because that's the constitution of every jiva. But we're ultimately servants of Krishna. So that's what it basically means, that constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is not as a competitor, yeah, not as a competitor, but as a servant. Yeah. So that's why devotees in temples or everyone generally has some service that they may do. Yeah. Is that okay? Jai Prakash, is any further questions on that? That's a
Yeah.
concept.
Yes, I got the constitutional position meaning, but so like it said, like constitution position in relation to the supreme. So that does that mean like once we like free from the passion and like we connected with Krishna, so does it create a conscious like connection between the soul and the Krishna, or does it mean like now we are ready to be like in that state where we free from all desires, hankering?
Yeah, well, that comes as a consequence, that being free of all, being on the Brahma Buddha platform, that comes as a consequence of being established as well in one's constitutional position. So there's different relationships that one does have with Krishna on the transcendental platform at the stages of perfection. So these
Okay.
are servitude as a servant of Krishna. That's the underlying principle of all modes of relationship. As a friend of Krishna, Sakya-ras, being a friend of Krishna. Then there's Vatsalya ras, being in a parent mood, like Mother Yasoda, Krishna. Then there's conjugal, being a lover, like the gopis. So that's, if you take it further, that's what it means in the ultimate sense. But for us now, we want to just be convinced that we're the servant of Krishna. And then these details will be realized as one progresses through the different stages of bhakti. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So 7:01, I guess we have to stop there. It's like 7:00. So small purports here, but I hope it's quite interesting and quite inspiring to hear, isn't it? These different levels of consciousness that we can achieve by serving Krishna. All right. So please join us tomorrow, and we'll just carry on with text 29. Let's just read the verse. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord everywhere. Yeah, so don't forget, these are the different levels now. It's going to be the next 4 levels will describe more mature meditation. So this is a step further. This is a step up from that. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you for kind attention, everyone, and please join us tomorrow. We'll have another exciting reading of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
This is Murli Manohar Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare